Let's just agree on this one. 90% of men are undateable. There. Now, we're not going to be too surprised by what we see. 90% of men are undateable. We're trying to choose from the 10%, right? So we don't get too surprised. We're disappointed. We're freaked out that, oh, I went on another date that turned out to be a dud. Another guy sent me some weird text message. Next, next, next. And dating doesn't become as much of a personal roller coaster anymore. It's more like weather. Sometimes it's going to rain. Sometimes there's going to be rush hour traffic. And you can get angry and have road rage in rush hour traffic, or you could listen to a book on tape or make a phone call. Right? There's just two ways of handling it. So I'm trying to tell people, here's what's predictable. I wish I could tell you, snap your fingers, your husband's going to descend through the ceiling, but that's not a very predictable path. Let's just assume that this is the way things are. If I were to tell you, Michelle, you have to go on one mediocre date a week for the next 6 months. But in 6 months, you'd find your husband. There he is. He's on the phone. He's calling right now.
Hello, honey.
If I were to tell you, go on one date a week for 6 months, and at the end of that rainbow, you meet your future husband, would you sign up for that?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'd signed up for it for 6 years. If at the end of that rainbow, I knew I was going to...
And 10 years and 300 dates.
Yeah.
So my job is to shorten people's learning curve, not because I want you to be a dating expert or get experience or duty date or do it for volume. I'm literally asking people to put themselves out there, give online dating a half hour a day, screen properly via email and phone, and don't become part of someone's texting harem, and get out there on a Friday or Saturday night, no coffee dates, go on a real date once a week. And if you do that, I can almost guarantee you're going to find a guy that you like who likes you. But most people like signing up for the gym at the beginning of the year. The act is signing up. Then the going's a little harder.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why people have coaches, is to give them positive reinforcement and structure. That's what Love You is about, to walk people through this process with support. Each lesson layers onto the next and pushes you through this course. So by the time you're done, you graduate with this master's degree education in men, dating, sex, relationships, communication, commitment, etc. So when people say, oh, it's not destined to happen for me, you write your own destiny. I'm sorry to out myself as a guy who's a secular non-believer, but at the end of the day, you are in control of your own life. You have free will. And some people choose to pack it in after their divorce and they're 42 and they stay alone and focus on their gardening and their friends and their home improvement projects. And if you're happy with that, God bless you, right? But if you secretly think, my life would be better if I had a person to share it with, you're right. It would be. Married people are the happily married people, which is, by the way, only 1/3 of married people. But happily married people are the happiest people of all, right? And someone gets that. And why shouldn't it be you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that what you just said is really important, Evan, and I just want to reemphasize this. I think sometimes in the midst of all of this, and I had my own long and winding journey to love as well, being a first-time bride at 43. So believe me, I know what we're talking about here. But I think one of the things that women often lose track of, myself included during some of that time, is actually that we do have more power and more say over this and over our destiny than we sometimes remember or realize. And I think one of the things that prevents a woman from moving forward in this area of life is just that completely setting back passively and just kind of hoping or waiting that something's going to happen. I mean, what other area of your life do you leave to chance like that, right?
Nothing. And we seem to think that love is different, that I want to fall in love, but I don't want to date.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be the partner in a law firm, but I don't want to go to law school.
Right.
It's not the way it works. Right? And just because you heard a story of some guy who met a woman at a supermarket and they slept together on the first night and they're together for 30 years, that's like winning the lottery. Winning the lottery is not a strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And there's way too many people who are out there thinking that winning the lottery is a strategy. And what I do is give you a very tangible, practical, achievable strategy. I'm not setting people up for failure. I'm setting people up for success, right? Smart, strong, successful, busy women with lives. I would not, right? Love you is something you do in 5 minutes a day. You can brush your teeth and watch out on your phone. Right? The whole point is that this is an adult education, and no one's ever taught us about the most important thing that life has to offer. No one's ever organized it in such a way, which again is not to make myself out to be someone special. I just took 13 years of coaching and put it out on video. But there should be more resources. This is not taught in high schools. This is not taught in college. This is not taught by our parents. And most of our friends don't know this either. Mm-hmm. So if you're attending your summit, Michelle, you're already 50% there, right? You're like, whether you know it or not, whether it feels hopeless or not, just your presence here means you are ahead of the game. You haven't given up, and you're committed to growing, learning, and seeing what's possible. And since we can't change Match.com or Dallas, Texas, or men, all we can do is change the way you are, what you believe, how you act and react and approach things. And you could attract better men and bring out a better side in the men that you see. That happened to me last night. I was a client I was working with for 6 months, and she was graduating from Love U, and she was flying. I mean, she was just emotionally, you could hear her. Something clicked in her head in the past week. 6 months ago, she was a mess, 40, wanted to have kids. I helped her get a boyfriend. She's used to being anxious around her boyfriend. She never knows where she stands, and she starts to cry and gets needy. And something clicked after 6 months where she's like, I am in total control of my own destiny. I'm the one who gets to decide if I want to marry him. I know he's a good man. I know he wants kids. I'm not going to spend my life panicking. I'm going to take control. And she was like, it was like, I almost barely even take credit. It's like just her going through this process, the osmosis, it just sort of sunk in to the point where 6 months later, she's just this very confident woman, the same woman she was the day before, just with a switch flipped in the back of her head, that she's worthy of love, that she's not going to act in fear. She's not going to stay with the wrong guy for the wrong reasons. She's not going to be afraid to have the tough conversations. And she could still be warm and trusting in spite of all of that. And to me, that's the thing, is people make these sort of a false dichotomy, right? Oh, I've been the doormat, so now I have to be a bitch. No, that's not how it works. I've trusted too much, so I can't be trusting. No, that's not how it works. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I do know what you mean. And what you just said there was so incredibly profound. So ladies, you might even want to rewind that last little piece, because I just think you hit upon, when you described what has happened for your client, some of the absolute key things that I also believe can help you to be successful in this area of your life. So I'm really glad that you talked about that. So one of the other things that I know that you're a big advocate of in your work, Evan, is online dating. And as you know, as well as I know from working with your clients, there's a lot of women that haven't had good experiences with online dating, or they have a lot of resistance to it, or they may have been out there for a short period of time and have had a few weirdos or less than desirables contacting them, and they're really ready to throw in the towel on it. And I would love to have you share a little bit more about your philosophy, perspective, and just some of the key things that you think would be valuable to this audience to know about online dating.
Sure. Yeah, I don't want to get stuck too much in the online dating trenches. It's a tool. Right. It's the tip of the iceberg. It's not the iceberg. And I'll say to anybody who's listening who's resistant to online dating, if you don't want to date online, it's absolutely fine. All you have to do is be able to generate one date a week without online dating. Go. I've never had a taker. 13 years, I've never had someone take me up on that offer. No. And that's not a coincidence, right? It's wonderful to say, I want to meet my guy in real life. I want to feel that chemistry the second I see him, and I want to meet through friends. I want to meet through social dance class. Great. Go out with your friends. Go to social dance class. And when you come home and you haven't met anybody, it would be great to have a Match.com account to see who wrote to you. Mm-hmm. Right? So to me, online dating is the gym, right? You have a membership. You don't have to, but you should have a membership. And the more you go, the more you get out of it. If you have a membership and you don't go, it's not going to do very much for you, right? But if you go consistently, give it a half hour a day, you're going to get something out of it. And if you communicate with 7 to 10 guys online at a given time, I could largely predict that through the process of weeding them out and them weeding themselves out by being weird or flaky or aggressive or stupid, or out of those 10, you're only going to get on the phone and meet with 1 or 2 of them and wash, rinse, repeat. So there's a funnel of guys who weed themselves out by email and phone. So when you go on a date with a guy after a week of flirting, you feel comfortable on that date. You're not going on blind dates with total strangers, right? Which he has no investment in you. You don't know who he is. You want to go out on a date where you like the guy. So when people say, I don't like online dating, to me, what I'm hearing is, I don't like online dating the way I've done it before.
Yeah.
Right? But that presumes there's only one way to date online. Right? And most people don't, for good reason, don't have the fortitude to stick around and experiment with online dating for 10 years like I did.
Right.
So if you've dated online and hated it, I don't blame you. There's a lot to hate, but you've never tried it my way. Like, that's the one thing I could tell you is you've never written a profile the way I've written profiles, usernames, headlines, searches, emails, understanding the opposite sex. I mean, I have a program called Finding the One Online. It literally walks you through the entire process of online dating. I devote 90 minutes of my Love You course to online dating. So it's not everything. It's 1 week out of 26 weeks in Love You, but it's a very important component, because if we're going to do dating coaching, but we're not doing any dating, it's like book learning. It's like reading a book about golf without picking up a club. So there's a lot of people who say, well, that's really safe. I don't want to pick up a club, right? I'd rather learn without actually putting it into practice, because real men scare me. Real men have opinions. Real men have hurt me. But you can't get the reward unless you put yourself out there. So 33% of all marriages 33% of marriages in the past 5 years began online, right? Mm-hmm. One might take that and say, well, I mean, 67% didn't. Well, yes, 100% of people exist offline, right? And the fact that only a small percentage of people are using online dating at a given time, and they're accounting for 1/3 of all marriages, means that it's really increasing your opportunity to find love exponentially from real life. And again, if you don't know that, don't want to hear that, don't want to believe that, don't date online. How many dates have you gone on in the past year? There's your answer. So I'm not going to sweep all of the issues with online dating, men who lie about their age or their weight or their income, men who give you their phone numbers and tell you to call them and text and flake out and send you pictures of their genitals. No one's defending any of it. Next. 90% of men right off the bat are not your husband. So instead of getting down about it, just sift. It's like going shopping at the mall. You don't go into every store. You go into a handful of stores to see what you want. And Match.com, OkCupid, it's the mall, right? Everything's there. You just got to look for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good analogy. That's a good analogy. And I think that I've had many clients that have met great men and partners and even had marriages as a result of being online. But I do think that it can require that ability to look at it from this standpoint of you're sifting through. You are not going to be compatible with everybody out there, and you are going to hear from people or see profiles that might potentially put you off. But
so if you're Harvard University, Michelle, you have 40,000 people applying for 3,000 spots. Mm-hmm. You get angry when the kid with the 1,000 SAT score and no extracurricular experience applies to you? No, you just put them in the reject pile. Mm-hmm. It's not why am I attracting the wrong people? You're attractive. If you're attractive, people are going to write to you because you're attractive. You don't get to choose who applies to your college. But if you're an exclusive college, right, you're going to get a lot more applications than the people you could accept. It's a luxury problem to have. Mm-hmm. So somehow people get upset. I'm attracting these like 80-year-old guys. Okay, 80-year-old men find you attractive. Next.
Right.
So we take this so personally.
Right.
Why are the only people who want me are the ones I don't want, and the ones I want don't want me? Well, guess what? That's called dating. That is literally the definition of dating for every man and every woman who's single. Everybody I want doesn't want me. Everybody who wants me, I don't want. Until there's that point on the graph where you find the person who wants you and you want them. But everybody's going through the same cycle of rejection and frustration. And these men, right, if you were talking mostly to women, do you know how much more men get rejected than women? Infinitely more. You think you feel rejection? Imagine being the guy who sends out 50 winks and gets 0 back, writes 10 long personal emails, gets nothing back, sends form letters, hey, you're really attractive, I'd love to learn more about you, gets nothing back. Men are rejected by 85%. 85% of their original emails are rejected. I've worked with women, they write 2 emails to a guy doesn't write back, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's level the landscape here. Let's call attention to what's going on here. Most people don't have a thick enough skin for online dating. And that's partially why they fail. Online dating companies, from a business perspective, they call it churn. Customer churn is that people sign up and they quit within 2 or 3 months. And that's like quitting the gym because suddenly you're not Miss America.
Right.
You don't quit.
Yeah, and I think this comes back to what we talked about in the beginning, is when you asked me the question, if you told me that I had to go on one bad date for 6 months.
Well, mediocre. It doesn't have to be bad.
Yeah, or less than thrilling date.
Yeah.
Let's say that. He's not my soulmate. He's not the love of my life. Would I be willing to go through that? Well, yeah, both you and I, we are a microcosm of what we're talking about. Both you and I had long and winding journeys to love, and we, in part, were successful in finding the right person for us because we didn't give up, because
right.
We kept moving through that process. And I like your gym analogy. You know, I've been in that boat where I've joined a gym at the beginning of the year, gone a few times, and then petered out. I mean, I think we can all relate to that in some area of life. Yeah. But this, I think, comes down to how deeply do you really desire and want this in your life? How important is this to you? And as Evan said, if you are here, it's probably something that's pretty important to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be spending your time and attention and focus on this.
Yeah, and I also think because it's not linear, it's not as easy. Right? One can say that if you bust your butt to try to get a new job, you could get a new job. May not be the perfect job. You may have to compromise, but if you're unemployed, most people get back on the job market sooner rather than later. When it comes to dating and relationships, relationships have only led to heartbreaks. So why am I working so hard to try to find that? People associate love with pain because that's the only choices they've made in the past. They've chosen bad men or bad partners or just incompatible partners, not even bad, just incompatible partners who aren't right for them. And so they only associate love with getting hurt. So why would I do more of that thing at least when I work at the gym, I feel good about myself. I feel like there's progress. Dating just makes me feel bad. Well, that also questions the premises. Why do dating people make you feel bad? Why do you choose people who aren't consistent, kind, committed, communicative, selfless? Right? Because those people exist. You just haven't chosen them before. Someone is that way. Someone of my gender is that way. Lots of people of my gender are that way. You haven't chosen that person before. He's been too boring. He's been too safe. Oh, so you're telling me I just have to compromise with some guy I'm not attracted to? Didn't say that. But that's what people hear. So ultimately, relationships are about two people who exalt each other and treat each other like gold, treat each other better, right? And if you've been a woman who's been burned by love, you say, well, I already treated a guy well, and that didn't work, right? Guys spit out your generalizations of guys. And the assumption is that it's somehow all men. And it's not. There are millions of men, right? Divorced men are more likely to want to get married again. 65% of divorced men want to get remarried. Only 46% of divorced women want to get remarried. And so there are no shortage of men who want to get married and fall in love faster than women, right? A lot of middle-aged people realize this. You meet that lonely guy who goes on a first date with you, and he's like, will you be my girlfriend? And you're like, can I get my Caesar salad first? That happens all the time. Because men want it really, really bad. And they might as well be like third grade boys pulling your hair to let you know that they like you. They're just so desperate for a good connection because they too are going out with 90% of people who are not right for them. So there's a rat race, but it's a race that's worth running if you know how to do it smarter and avoid mistakes and not waste time. And instead of spending 2 years on a guy, you spend 6 weeks on him and then cut him loose. So to me, that's what my coaching and that's what Love You is all about, is just giving people the tools to see this a lot more clearly so that you can go do this yourself. You don't have to be intimidated by dating. Dating becomes a source of joy and excitement rather than fear. A client of mine who now has a great boyfriend, her name is Nicole, she's 40 years old. She said, this was her quote, "Before I met you, dating felt like drowning." That's how scary it was to go out on another date with a guy. I just felt like I was drowning. Right? That's a terrible feeling, but it's a God's honest one. Right? It does not have to be that way. You don't have to be stuck with that. Right? There is a light at the end of that tunnel, and if you've been in that tunnel for so long and your friends are also in that tunnel and you get negative reinforcement from everybody around you, how much dating sucks, online dating sucks, Match sucks, your city sucks, well, you're going to believe the worst. It's just from people on the other side, happily married people have a very different narrative, and it's just as valid. And you could become one of those people if you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that reminder. And I'd like to just maybe have you expand just a little bit, Evan, on a couple of other things that you've talked about here. So, because I know the women really value hearing the male perspective on this, and I think it's really important. And that is that you've shared already a couple of important things about men. And one is that they get rejected a lot. And I think sometimes women don't always remember or realize that. The other is that you spoke about how men, at least a lot of men out there, are really just dying inside for that deep connection. And I just wonder if you can expand on some of this, just give us a little bit more insight into kind of the hearts and minds of men, because I just think sometimes women don't understand what it's like from that other side, from the male side. We're focused on what's happening to us in our experience, right?
Sure. In my book, Why He Disappeared, I talk about how good qualities come with bad qualities. And this is not unique to a gender. If you find a guy who's a self-made millionaire, it's probably going to work a lot.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be ambitious, busy, opinionated, bossy, driven, stubborn. That's how he became a self-made millionaire. Right? Might not be home at 5 to cook you dinner and bathe the kids.
Right.
Guy who's really gorgeous might be a player. He might be a narcissist. Women throw themselves at him. He may not be as willing to settle down, compromise, maybe too into looks, may not have developed his kindness because he's gotten away with so much for being so good looking. Right? But he's gorgeous, don't get me wrong. So we could play this game, how good qualities come with bad qualities. If we look at masculine energy, which is doing, drive, ambition, opinion, right? The downside of that is the downside that we often see in men. They're not as in tune with their emotions. They're not as focused on consensus. They're not as worried about making friends as much as getting ahead. They don't share in the same way that women do. Right? So it's not that all men X and all men women Y, but rather that masculine energy is about self, feminine energy is about others. And when you find a guy who's 50 years old and divorcing his wife of 20 years, right, and his kids are just about out of the house, what has he got? He's got his job.
Hopefully.
Right? Maybe one other divorce buddy. But everybody else, is either happily or unhappily married. Right? And he just lost the pillar of his life, his wife and his kids. Right? So what does he have? Nothing. Men do not maintain friendships for the most part in that way. I'm as sensitive as they come for guys. I mean, I communicate like a woman. That's why I do this for a living. Right? My best friends from college, I'll talk to them twice a year, 3 times a year. We used to talk to them every month before we had kids, but now it's once or twice a year. If I don't go to visit them, I don't see them. They don't care as much as I do. Right? And that's just the way it goes with guys. My mom, who's, widowed, surrounded by friends, right? She's in like Golden Girls land with, like, she's retired and she plays cards and she goes to the garden and she takes beach trips and she takes cruises and she's got this amazing, ridiculous life filled with women, right? It's a very different thing that most women haven't considered, is how bone lonely guys are, right? And how they yearn for connection. And no one even talk about this. They don't get to talk about dating or feelings. They go out and they measure themselves by the money they make, and they yearn for more. And just because a guy yearns for more doesn't mean he's worthy. Just because a guy wants to get married doesn't mean he's a good husband, right? Let's not conflate the two. Ultimately, I tell women, you're the CEO of your own love life. These are just interns applying for a job with you. You don't have to like all of them. In fact, I encourage you to reject most of them, right, on the way. But let's not dehumanize them and treat men as if they're pigs and dogs and only want one thing and have no integrity and are. It's just, if anything, it's a half truth, right? And beyond that, it might be a mistruth. It might not actually be true. What is true is that people have different agendas and people want different things, right? People have different paces. So a man might come in and find you really attractive and want to have sex. That doesn't mean he doesn't want to get married. It just means he doesn't know if he likes you enough to marry you. He does know he likes you enough to sleep with you. That doesn't make him a bad guy. It just makes him a guy. Someone has to call attention to that. That just because he has a different agenda or pace doesn't make him bad or wrong or evil. He's just as valid as you. Right? It's no different than politics in that regard. We have to learn to live together. You might find people that you're more aligned with, but just because someone disagrees with you doesn't mean they're bad or evil. They might not just be a good fit for you. So we have to get away from demonizing, and I know men do it too. I just happen to be a coach for women. We need to stop demonizing the opposite sex just for being the opposite sex. I assure you, if you went out with women, you know who'd be the problem? Women. If women were the ones who were hurting you, flaking out on you, criticizing you, bailing on you, telling you you weren't good enough, and that was my experience for 300 dates. Right? I still love women. But don't get me wrong, anything that happens to you as a woman happened to me as a man too. You just date men, so therefore men are the problem. Right? So it's hard to get out of that way of thinking that this is my goal, right? I want a man, and yet I also see him as kind of my enemy and obstacle. It's not. There's no enemy time. These are just people. Right? So I encourage people to date like you're sitting next to someone on a plane. You don't go, oh my God, I'm so excited to be sitting next to a guy with. You just hope to be sitting next to someone who's slim enough that you could fit in your seat. But if you have a nice conversation beyond that, it's a bonus. And sometimes you do. You talk to a stranger for 4 hours, you share personal things. It's a lovely thing, and then you never see him again. That's the way we should go on dates. No expectations. Just go out and have fun. See if we have a nice conversation. If we have a nice conversation, we connect, we do it again. You're not on a husband hunt. Right? Pressure's really low. And when you view it as I'm sitting next to a stranger on a plane, you don't get too worried about whether you see that person again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that I love that example of sitting next to someone on a plane, because I think that takes so much of the pressure off, and you can be in that lightness, and you can be in the moment, and you can just be enjoying the experience for what it is. Because I know as a woman that one of the things that happens is on a date, or in a situation where you're meeting someone new, and I'm sure this happens for men to some extent as well, but the mind is going crazy. Is he the right guy? Do I look all right? He's attracted to me? Am I attracted to him? It's like we're so preoccupied with what's going on in our minds and analyzing everything when we can't even be present to just enjoy that interaction.
You just nailed it. That's it. Imagine you're watching a movie, and while you're watching the movie, you're thinking of the groceries you have to buy on the way home from the movie, right? Or you're thinking of that uncomfortable conversation you're going to have with your boyfriend after the movie, or you're not going to enjoy the movie because you're not immersed, you're not present. That's why people do yoga, right? And if you're thinking when you're doing yoga, you're not really enjoying yoga in the same way. Like if you're not present and you're not just there, like right now, I'm sure I have something to do with the rest of the day, but all I'm thinking about is this conversation. And I'm not even thinking about this conversation because I'm not trying to posture and saying, what does Michelle think of me? What do readers think of me? I'm just talking. That's present, right? Where you're not remotely worried about what other people think of you or what the outcome's going to be, right? Now, someone might be watching this and saying, well, yeah, but you're unlikable, right? Okay, but I'm not too worried about that. People who like me, people who don't, right? People who are going to come to my mailing list afterwards to get a free gift, great. I'm not for you, no big deal, no hard feelings, right? And that's the way I approach dating, that's the way I approach life, is you do your best, you put yourself out there, you're authentic, you're vulnerable, and you're going to find your people. But the more confident you are in yourself, the more people are going to like you. That's the interesting conundrum, is if you go into a date assuming that, let's use these made-up numbers again, I assume everybody's going to like me on a date. Guess what? 10% of the time I'm wrong. 10% of the time people are like, I don't like this guy. Okay, but 90% did. So am I going to focus on the 90 or am I going to focus on the 10? But the fact that I like myself got me the 90. If I didn't like myself, is everything okay, Michelle? Are you having fun? Am I going to see you again? How am I doing? Right? Insecure Evan doesn't get 90% of second dates. Right? So just being present and assuming that the answer is yes is a great way to go into dating. Just think the best of yourself, of your partner, give everybody the benefit of the doubt. You're the hostess of a dinner party. You're committed to the guy having a great time. And that's it. That's it. It doesn't go beyond that. Dating does not have to be scary or stressful or onerous, and you should certainly not be in your head. You're just having a conversation with a stranger and seeing how it feels. And if there's enough comfort, fun, and attraction, you go out again. If there's not enough comfort, fun, and attraction, you don't go out again. Right? And there's always another guy out there. So even if a guy you really like doesn't call you, it stings. But it stings for a few days, and then you find another guy to replace him. That's called dating. And the people who can embrace that get what they're looking for. The people who say, oh my God, that's just torture on my heart, are the ones who drop out after a month. They think they should be on Match. They've been in love 3 times in their life. They get on Match for a month and they say, I'm going to give up on love. I've been in love 3 times in 50 years, but I'm going to quit this after a month. Short-sighted. Right? It's developing the understanding of what to expect instead of being surprised by what's predictable. What's predictable is that most people are not for you. Right? And it's as predictable as cold in the winter and rush hour traffic on a Friday. It's just predictable. So why get ourselves all bent out of shape about it?
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that perspective, because I think that it can be that we get hung up on the ones that aren't for us, and then we build up this, you and I have talked about this before, Evan, this confirmation bias. We have a few experiences or a bad experience or two, and we start layering those on top of each other, and then we strengthen that belief that, there's no one out there, men equate pain, I'm going to receive rejection, this is not worth it. And then as we build up that belief system, it becomes stronger and stronger and stronger, and we almost can predict that that's going to continue to be our experience. Whereas if we can go into it with this realism about what is likely to occur, and even perhaps with a positive expectation that this is just an opportunity to explore something and to have a layer upon layer of at least pleasant experiences, even if you're not meeting the right guy right out of the gate, then you can begin to build up a positive confirmation bias rather than just add layer upon layer upon that those negative beliefs.
Well, I think it's important to establish that the next guy has nothing to do with the last guy.
Yeah.
If you roll a die and you get a 6, the fact that you roll a die a second time and get a 6 doesn't mean the next time you roll a die you're more likely to get a 6. You still have a 1 in 6 chance. So the next guy is a completely independent roll of the die. Right? My wife has been cheated on by 3 men, including her husband. It has nothing to do with me. Right? Her 3 cheating boyfriends, they have nothing to do with me. If she treated me like I was a cheater, she wouldn't be my wife. If she was afraid of me talking to other women, my business is talking to women, she wouldn't be my wife. Right? So we do have, there's the confirmation bias where we go out and find evidence to support what we already believe, and there's the recency effect. The last guy was a slacker. The last guy was an alcoholic. The last guy was a bad communicator. Ergo, that says something about an entire gender. It's not true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. So I want to ask you one last question. I'll also let you leave us with kind of a parting thought, pep talk, whatever you'd like. But I just think the women would like to hear, because you had your own long and winding journey to love and went through 300 dates, etc., 300 plus dates. But I would like for you to share a little bit about your wife and some of the things that most attracted you to her, because I just think that part of attracting the right love is who we're showing up as in the world as women, who we're actually being. And sometimes there's a lot of focus on what we're doing. And certainly there are, tactical things that we can do to increase the opportunities for ourselves. But I also think this piece about who we're showing up as, who we're being as women is really important, which is why the subtitle for this event is Invite, Inspire, and Ignite Love and Passion with Your Mr. Right.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a great and well-framed question. Thank you, Michelle. And I always invite the opportunity to talk about my wife. And I think one of the hardest things to do is not turn it into a hagiography where I overly praise her, because it almost sounds unrealistic. At the same time, my wife is my muse and my North Star. Right? It is no secret that if you join Love U, I'm teaching you to act like my wife, right? And I'm teaching you how to get a guy like me. That's not for everybody. And I'm the first person to say that. Right? I call my wife, the example is she's the cool girl with boundaries. I'm the nice guy with balls. Right? That's in general what most people are looking for. Right? Men are looking for, they're not looking for bitches. They're not looking for doormats. They're looking for cool girls with boundaries. And what does that mean? It means that your fundamental answer is yes. That you're fundamentally easygoing, supportive, warm, happy, appreciative. Men want to be accepted, appreciated, and admired. Right? They don't get that from their guy friends. Their guy friends, guy language is making fun of each other, taking each other down a notch, not being vulnerable, not telling people your weaknesses and being accepted for it, not being flawed and human and having someone say, I love you anyway. Right? So there's so many women out there who really claim to love men and constantly complain about how their men fail them, despite the fact that those men are doing the best that they can. And I'm not saying you should stay with him. If you have a man who's unacceptable, if he's verbally abusive, if he doesn't want to commit to you, if he is chronically unemployed and can't put food on the table, there's plenty of valid reasons to leave a guy. But I'm speaking as a guy who went out with women, fell in love with women, and it was, Evan, I love you, but you got to change this, and you got to change this, and you got to change this, and you got to change this. And ultimately what I figured out, like my epiphany was, I'm not looking for I'm attracted to women with big brains, right? I'm attracted to women who are ambitious and opinionated and sassy. But you know what I need the most? I need a woman who accepts me as I am. Just someone who likes me without saying, well, maybe if you do this different, maybe if you do this different. I'm not hiring a project manager or a consultant to tell me how to be better. I know how to be better. Like, my job in life is to get better. That's my mission, is to be a better father, better husband, better business coach. So I just needed a woman who accepted me. And this is page 1 of why he disappeared. Men, right? People think, oh, he found some younger, thinner woman. No. That's not it. Men are about feelings. Looks just get you in the door. All those women's magazines about your 6-minute abs. All right, what you're talking about is how to be warm, appreciative, fun, accepting, tolerant, patient, easygoing, flexible. And by the way, they're great traits to look for in men too. Far more important than tall, dark, handsome, rich. All right. Is your partner secure? Can you have a reasonable discussion with them? Can you resolve conflict really easily? Do they put your needs first? Are they largely selfish, selfless? So when I'm telling women how to be, I can give the same advice to men. Right? This isn't women need to change, but men don't. We all need to be a lot more patient and a lot more tolerant, right? And a lot more selfless instead of keeping score. And we have to operate from a place of confidence and security. Insecure people, whether you're a man or a woman, are draining. And the hard part is most people are insecure. And that's the reality. And if your insecurities become his problem, you're going to have a problem. Right? And so when we talk about how to be, my wife is really special because, again, I've never met anybody like her. She lives in Disneyland in her head. She's just always happy. She likes everybody. She likes everything. Everybody likes her. She's just like a walking ray of sunshine. I know that's not everybody's demeanor, and it doesn't mean you're wrong. I'm not a walking ray of sunshine, but I chose one as a partner. Right? So I constantly find women who fall in love with men who are complicated and brooding, and please choose a guy who's stable and happy. Let's start there. Stable and happy. Everything else is a bonus. There's my dating advice for the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My husband and I have talked about this, that at the end of the day, you want someone that's just going to show up for you consistently. And some of these other nice to haves that we sometimes get so focused on do not compensate in a real life, ongoing partnership relationship for someone that you can just count on to show up for you and to have that acceptance from. I think none of us need to have our partner be our harshest critic. The world offers enough of that on its own.
And the partner knows. I mean, that's the interesting dance is no one's going to know your flaws like your partner.
That's right.
Just, you need to be reminded about them all the time. But no one's going to know you the way your partner does. I mean, I can criticize my wife better than anybody if I want to. Right. Doesn't produce a positive outcome, right? Because she didn't bring me on board as a husband to tell her what's wrong with her. Even if everything I say is true and vice versa. Any of those critical ex-girlfriends of mine, they weren't wrong. Their criticisms are perfectly valid. But sorry, it's like waking up every morning and having a Post-it note on your desk from your boss that says you suck. What a great way to start the day. And that happens. Women try to mold their men. They see potential. If he only changed this, if he only changed this, how many emails do I get from women each month? How can I make my boyfriend? How can I make him? ... You don't make him do anything. You take him or you leave him. Let's assume that this is as good as it gets. Is it make you happy? Stay. If you don't like it, go. There's no third path. I'm going to stay and nag the shit out of him. Mm-hmm. Those are the two paths. Stay or go. Accept or don't accept. And that's a hard line. Right? And part of what I'm giving women in Love You is the ability to understand what is acceptable. What are reasonable boundaries? What is fair? What should you compromise on? What shouldn't you compromise on? Because these are hard questions. I'm making it into a binary choice, but they are hard existential questions. People who've settled in the past say, I'm never settling again, right? And people who are too picky have to figure out something to compromise on. And there's a message for both of them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, you're right when you said our partner, and here's the the interesting piece about this, our partner is going to know us and our flaws and our vulnerabilities and our weaknesses. They see us at our best. They see us at our worst. But at the end of the day, I think we all, as men and women, and I'm just reemphasizing your point, want to be accepted and loved and have a relationship where we feel safe to show all of those aspects of ourselves and still know at the end of the day that this person has got our back and is on our side. And I think that goes for both men and women. And my husband and I have talked a lot about this because we've been through, like any married couple, a lot together and have had to learn a lot about this. But I know at the end of the day, he's got my back. He's not going to leave me. He's going to be loyal to me. Even when he sees me at my worst, he's still going to choose to remember that underneath all of that, there's still a lot of good and there's a lot of reasons that he loves me. And that, I think, is what you're talking about in relationship to your wife. And I think it's kind of at the core of what a really good partnership is about.
Yeah, again, it's addressing core needs. So it's not that there's not an overlap, but I say women need to feel safe, heard, and understood. And men need to feel accepted, appreciated, and admired. And if you have a boyfriend who doesn't make you feel safe, heard, and understood, you should find a new boyfriend. And similarly, if you are a girlfriend who doesn't make your boyfriend feel accepted, appreciated, or admired, he's not getting his core needs met. He might not be able to articulate that. But if you start showing that, you'll literally overnight notice a difference in how your boyfriend responds to you. Mm-hmm. Like it's magic. Men are so used to being cut down, whether women realize that they're part of that or not. And it's hard. It's hard to listen to this if you're one and say, the problem is that guys suck so much, not me. Look what I'm doing. But remember, your responsibility is choosing good guys to treat you well. From there, what kind of girlfriend are you going to be? Are you going to be the one who's like, yeah, honey, have your friends over for Sunday. I'll go out and get some beers and you guys could watch the Broncos game together. That would be great girlfriend behavior. Instead of saying, you care about football more than you care about me. How can we not? Well, again, if he's a terrible boyfriend, that's one thing. But if he wants 3 hours to watch a football game with his friends, it doesn't have to be a quid pro quo. The answer is yes. My wife's going to Beyonce tonight. Right? I'm watching the kids. I'm paying for the Beyonce concert and dinner. But whatever. That's the way it goes. So yes, dear. Yes, dear is the best answer. Yes, dear, whatever you want, dear. And then 5% of things where you say, you know what, that doesn't work for me. Now we're going to discuss it. But mostly it's, how do I please you? How do I please you? How do I please you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this has been a really fun and juicy conversation, and I know it's going to be very valuable to the women that are listening, Evan. So I thank you for being here with me and joining me. So, Evan, before we wrap up today, I want to give you an opportunity to just leave us with a parting thought, whatever you'd like to say.
Listen, I'm an unlikely messenger for this. I'm a male dating coach for smart, strong, successful women. I help women understand men and find love. And I want you to know that both of those things are very realistic goals, right? Sometimes it seems like it's so far away. It's impossible to understand men. Men baffle me. Love is just not in the cards for me. I've tried every which way. I've been married twice. I've fallen in love. Everything I've done wrong. I just don't believe it's in the cards. That's a narrative. That's a story. That might have been your story up until today. But it does not have to continue to be your story. You have the right to change that story at any point in time and rewrite the ending. I have a client, her name is Christine. She came to me 8 years ago. She's very masculine, challenging, driven, opinionated. She liked dating bad boys, and bad boys were very bad to her, right? And constant massaging and nudging. We worked together 3 times over the years. Right. I finally met her in person. I work like this. I talk to people all over the world on the phone. She told me she was in Los Angeles. She just got engaged, and her daughter got engaged using my material. Right. It took her 8 years. It took her daughter a lot less. Right, to just wrestle with this and figure out how to apply it to her, to find a man who was cute, smart, cherished her, treated her like gold, and how not to run in the opposite direction because he was nice to her. right? Then men who are consistent, you're looking for the smooth ride. And I think that's probably my biggest parting words. Good relationships are fundamentally easy. That sounds like like something from outer space. Aren't we told that relationships take work? They take effort. You have to try to be good to your partner, but it's not work. Right? I would hate to get home from work and then have to work with my wife. It's easy. She's my best friend. Right? She's family. So if your relationship is that much of a struggle, go find another relationship. Really, go find another relationship. Relationships should feed you and nurture you. And if they're draining you, right, and you're used to that, well, that's just what relationships are. They take work. Good ones don't. It's like putting on a pair of shoes and finding out, oh, wow, these fit really nice. Mm-hmm. So please trust your gut on that one, regardless of what you heard here, right, all the cerebral stuff. If it doesn't feel good, it's not doing its job. Relationships should buoy you and boost you and make you happy and give you love and warmth and self-esteem, not be a drain on your energy. And far too many women waste far too many years of their lives. Tracy's a client of mine who spent 22 years with a guy who virtually never talked to her because she was afraid of rocking the boat and upsetting her husband and upsetting her kids. Spent 22 years of her life, right, until she declared her freedom. And then she found another guy, right? And he was loyal and passionate and intelligent, but he was a negative, critical guy, right? Instead of staying with him for 22 years, I got her to break up with him in 7 months. That's a triumph, right? She was not going to spend the rest of her life with the wrong men just because she's afraid of rocking the boat or being mean, right? So preserve yourself. If a man's not making you happy, what's he for?
Yeah, I appreciate that parting thought, and I do agree with you. I can remember people telling me, and we've all heard this, when you meet the right person, things are just going to kind of flow and naturally fall into place. Well, after my dating for decades, I thought, yeah, right. And I've got some oceanside property here in Utah to sell you too. But the truth is that when I did meet my husband, things did naturally come together and things naturally progressed. And it wasn't this struggle or conflict or drama that I'd experienced in other relationships. And it just felt good. It just felt good. So I love that you brought that out. I love that you brought that forward.
Thank you for the opportunity again. I appreciate it, Michelle.
Yeah. So I want to thank Evan once again, and I want to thank each of you for joining us. I hope you'll join us for more. Bye-bye for now.